Welcome back to the Draft Ranking Show. I am Cody Carpentier, and today we're going to be talking about the 2025 wide receiver class and my top 10 wide receiver rankings. This one's not going to be as deep as the running back group because it's just not as deep as the running back group. This class is much weaker, and I was just on a show the other day talking about it. I think what it is it missing that alpha, that true tier one solo dolo. Think of Jamar Chase. Think of the top of a draft where you look at a guy and you go, can't miss him. Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, Roma Dunze last year were those guys. Think about the year a couple years ago. We had Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison. That class was closer to this class, whereas it's like, there's no true alpha profile that you can depend on. The year before, we really all liked Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. Jameson Williams, of course, had the speed to burn. The year before that, elite talent, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle. These classes, this class, 2025, is missing that true super talent, that true top-end alpha. A lot of people have tried to name Tedero McMillan that, but Tedero McMillan ain't that. We'll just keep it 100, all right? A lot more people are entering Matthew Gold into this conversation. I don't think that's right either. I had Luther Burden there until yesterday. I changed it. Came off. The hit rate of wide receivers in the NFL that fit his mold, and let me just keep it a buck with that. So Luther Burden, who ran a 4.41, who to me, and what I look for in a receiver is the archetype. And when I talk about the archetype is a guy that is north of 5'10, 5'11, 6 foot, and maybe even 6'1, 190 pounds to 210 pounds, runs a sub 4.5, and has strong hands and an elite talent, a dynamo is what I like to call him. This is the archetype. This is my favorite wide receiver. And when I fill out all of those things, 5'10 to 6'1, 190 to 210, sub 4.5, and I sort by hand size. People are going to go, wait, why are you sorting by hand size, Cody? Well, I'm sorting by hand size because when you look at the top, when you're sorting by hand size, you recognize guys like Odell Beckham Jr., 10-inch hands. Stephon Diggs, 10-inch hands. Jalen McMillan, 10-inch hands. Christian Kirk, 10-inch hands. Malik Neighbors, 10-inch hands. Brandon Ayuk, almost 10-inch hands. Brian Thomas, almost 10-inch hands. Roddy White, 10-inch hands. Jamar Chase, over 9.5-inch hands. It matters. Emeka Egbuka fits this profile. Emeka Egbuka, 6 foot, almost 1 inch, 202 pounds, 9 5/8 inch hands. The problem is the opposite end of this situation. That, my friends, is Luther Burden. He came in 6 foot tall, 206 pounds, which I love. 8.5-inch hands. In this archetype, in the last decade, only Colby Listenby from TCU had smaller hands at the wide receiver position. In the last 2 decades, you can add one more name, Chris Givens from Wake Forest. Chris Givens was a 4th-round pick. Colby Listenby was a 6th. I'm not saying it's the end-all be-all, but you look at guys that, like, the hit rate for this group of guys, even the guys north of him, George Pickens, 8 6/8-inch hands. He hit, sure, but it's sparse other than that. Let's get into the top 10 here, and that's why Luther Burden's not my number one. Number 10, Isaiah Bond from Texas. He runs a 4.4 flat, but he has a 24.17 mile per hour tracking time on that 40-yard dash. We have 23 mile an hour tracking data from the season. Bond is dealing with injuries. That's the big thing here. But Bond is a game-breaking athlete that I compare to Jalen Waddle. Number 9, Elik Aomanor from Stanford came into the combine at 6'1" and 6'8", almost 6'2", 206 pounds, 10-inch mitts for Elik Aomanor. 4.44. I predicted a 4.56 for Aomanor. Big jump here for Aomanor in speed, or perceived speed, I should say. I kind of think of an Adam Thielen and Jalen Coker when I look at Aomanor. Number 8, Jalen Noel, who had a great from Iowa State, who had a great Senior Bowl, continues to move up the ranks, almost 5'10", 196 pounds. He runs a 4.39. His friend at Iowa State, Jaden Higgins, comes in next at number 7, 6 foot, almost 4 inches, 217, 79 and 3/8 inch wingspan at 6'3" and 6/8. Tedero McMillan is a half-inch taller and has almost an inch shorter wingspan than Jaden Higgins. Longer than he is tall is Jaden Higgins here at number 7. Number 6, one of my favorite receivers, maybe favorite players in the whole draft, Torrey Horton from Colorado State, a guy that missed 7 games this year because of a knee injury. He came in with great numbers across the board. I was worried he was going to be 6 foot, like 180 or 6'3", 180, because he's listed at 6'3" on the website. I didn't know what to expect. 6'2.5", 196, 77-inch wingspan, 4.41. Broke out at age 20. He's going to be age 23 this year. Massive 3.45 yards per route run for Torrey Horton. I think of a Jordan Addison, a Marvin Jones, a Josh Reynolds to a certain extent with Torrey Horton. I might be higher than anybody in the space on Torrey Horton. And I love it. I love it. I was worried because he was like going to be like a stretch Devonta Smith. Like you take Devonta Smith and you just stretch him a little bit taller, a little bit leaner. That's what I was worried about. No longer at 196 pounds am I worried about Torrey Horton running that 4.41. Wide receiver 5, Trey Harris. I have 5A, 5B. I put Travis Hunter in here because Travis Hunter, as a standalone receiver, is my number 1 receiver. But with him playing both positions, I can't put him at number 1. You just can't. So on a grade standpoint, Travis Hunter is my number 1 graded wide receiver. But Trey Harris is here as well at number 5. 6'2", 205, runs a 4.54, expected that. 5.15 yards per route run is immaculate, almost double everybody else. The average is like a 2.4, 2.5. That's really good. Trey Harris destroyed the last couple years at Ole Miss. Number 4, Tet McMillan from Arizona. I am not into this hype here. He's not as good as Drake London. He's a very solid receiver. Somewhere south of T. Higgins is where I have Tet McMillan as far as expectations. I wouldn't go as far to say Equinemius St. Brown, Justin Ross, but just know that's in the range of outcomes. I like Tet McMillan, but I'm not into this top 10 supreme talent alpha. He's not that. He's a flat Stanley in comparison to body build to Drake London, and Drake London's a basketball player. Number 3, Luther Burden. I just came down with him from number 1. And number 2 and number 1 are very, very close together. From a dependability standpoint, I like Emeka Egbuka, but from an overall projection standpoint, I'm riding Matthew Golden as wide receiver when he came in at 5'11", 191 pounds, ran a 4.29, which was not expected. I had the comp of Santonio Holmes to begin with. I moved to Jordan Addison, Stephon Diggs. It's kind of where I'm at right now. Emeka Egbuka is like a Robert Woods, Jarvis Landry type of guy from Ohio State. He comes in at 6 foot, 202 pounds, does not run. We'll see what he runs, probably low 4.4s at the Ohio State Pro Day. Those are the rankings. Number 1 through 10, Matthew Golden, Emeka Egbuka, Luther Burden, Tedero McMillan, Travis Hunter, with a caveat that he is graded as my number 1 receiver, but he'll play DB mostly as the focus. Trey Harris, Torrey Horton from Colorado State, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, both from Iowa State, Elik Aomanor, and Isaiah Bond. And my favorite sleeper in the whole class is, of course, Jalen Royals from Utah State. Go turn the tape on and leave the light on.